Question number one, Rebecca. What's one piece of advice you wish that every aspiring author would take seriously?
There's a quote from an American poet called Kate Bear who says, "No one cares about your book but you," which sounds quite brutal, but I think what it means is before you're published, when you are just self-motivating and you are working in a Google Doc alone, the only person who cares whether that manuscript gets done is you. Plenty of your people in your life will encourage you, but ultimately it entirely comes down to you to get it done, which can be really scary. But you have to remember, no one else cares but you. You have to make it happen. And the thing I always tried to remember when I was in the phase of being unpublished but really wanting to be published was I didn't want to not do it out of fear of failure, because I didn't want to get to the end of my life, whether that's a year from now, 5 minutes from now, 40 years from now, and sit there and realize that I never gave it a go because I was too scared. So no one caring can feel quite brutal, but it can also be quite motivating. So no one cares about your book but you. So get it done.
Question number two, Rebecca. What's a scene or idea you never shared publicly but always wanted to?
I would really love to do a version of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier from the perspective of Rebecca. If you haven't read it, she is the main character's husband's dead wife, his first wife, and she casts this huge cloud over the entire book, but she's never there because she's dead before the story starts. And I won't spoil it just in case you haven't read it. Please read it if you haven't. But I would just love to write a version of Rebecca from Rebecca's perspective. But I think because of copyright, that will not be legally allowed until long after I'm gone. So hopefully some writer in the future will do it.
Question number three, Rebecca. What's the weirdest or most unexpected thing you've ever Googled for a story?
I swear if the police ever looked at my Google history, they would think there was something criminal about me, because it's just necessary. Like whenever you're building a fictional world, it requires a lot of bizarre searches. I'd say the weirdest, and I won't go too far into detail because it is for something that hasn't been published yet. But I was trying to figure out whether it is possible to cut off a person's foot in a non-surgical setting. So could you cut someone's foot off like in a back shed, and would they survive? Is that kind of possible? How do you do that? What's involved? Where is the initial cut made? Google was not very helpful, and it was getting to the point I even asked ChatGPT, like, I do not mess with AI, but I just thought maybe that would help me, and it just like refused to answer me because clearly it thought I was a criminal. So eventually I had to talk to a friend who's an orthopedic surgeon who filled me in on whether or not that's possible. So I won't say any more because it could be a potential spoiler.
Question number four. What was a moment in your career when advice from another writer changed your path?
I'm very lucky to know Tim Ailiff, who is a thriller writer. We both used to work at the ABC together, and he had written several books when I finally sort of admitted to myself I also wanted to be an author. And so when I had a finished manuscript, I went and asked for his advice because he's always been incredibly approachable and friendly. And he said to me, the key to getting published is to write the book that you would want to read. It's that simple. If you want to read it, someone else will. That's just the way humanity works. So don't try to be too clever. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just think of the book that would make you race to bed at night so that you could get back into that world. And I think it's so simple but so profound.
And fifth and final question, Rebecca. What's a moment you realised your writing had connected with someone in a way that you didn't expect?
In The Heir Apparent, Lexi is, she's this princess who's strayed from the monarchy and then she returns, and she's thinking about what kind of charity she wants to spotlight and, how she wants to spend her time. And she picks a fistula hospital in Kenya. And if you don't know, a fistula, it's an injury that you can sustain during childbirth, and it's particularly common for younger mothers. And it can have, it's easily fixed, and it's quite a cheap operation. But if it's not fixed, it can have devastating consequences for that woman. And I got an email recently from someone who works in a fistula hospital in Africa, and They just said, thank you for picking that cause, because hardly anyone knows about it. It doesn't get enough attention. And, the reason I chose it was I remember, watching a documentary about Catherine Hamlin, who was an Australian doctor working in Ethiopia who opened a fistula hospital. So I kind of did it as a nod to her because she was just so amazing. But yeah, that was just such a profound moment, because it was a decision I'd made in like a split second. Like, what's a charity I would pick if I was Lexi? I'd go with that. But to make someone who's doing really incredible work feel seen was just so profound.
Thank you so much for tuning in to 5 Authors, 5 Questions. We'll be back next week with another author, but for now, hit the subscribe button and comment below. Thanks, everyone. Bye.